Well, it's Groundhog Day. Again. And that must mean that I am Professor Robert E.G. Black, and this is the Groundhog Day Project.
It's one of those infinite time loop situations you might have heard about.
It's a thing where the same day keeps happening.
Time.
I wake up every day right here, right in Punxsutawney, and it's always February 2nd.
The last revision is what counts, apparently.
We are in Groundhog Day, minute 72. Rita is in Phil's room again. This is the end of God Day. Phil ended last minute by saying, I've killed myself so many times. We come in the middle of the sentence. I don't even exist anymore. Which is an interesting idea, is that I said many minutes ago that what Phil needs is to confront his shadow. He needs to basically destroy his ego, or rather shut down his ego. Is ego death? Is that what they call it? I'm not up on psychiatry terms. I haven't read Freud or Jung, though I have research stuff about Freudian or Jungian stuff that I wrote about in the blog, even when talking about like shadows and ego and other stuff like that. I'm not good at those things, so take my phrasing with a grain of salt. But I hope you understand my point, is that Phil needs this. He needs to get to the point where he is saying, I don't exist. I'm not a person. He still has memory, of course, of the Phil that was before. This is why I do have a problem. For the record, we are on the... Where's the number? Sorry, God Day lasted so many minutes. We are on the 28th iteration of February 2nd that we see in the film. I don't like the people that keep track of the days. I keep track for the purposes of story structure and film structure. I'm not arguing that Phil has only been in the time loop for 28 days. And I definitely wouldn't argue that he's been there for less than 28 days. That's basically the minimum, is how I number it. He's probably been there longer. I think he was being honest when he listed the ways he's died, and he listed 6 ways that we haven't seen. So that implies there's at least 6 other days that we haven't seen. Because we went straight from suicide sequences to today, God Day. I don't think he died any time before driving the truck off the cliff at the quarry. And to suggest otherwise would fuck with the story structure. But it's important that he gets to this point where he has killed himself, or he has, not even literally, he didn't have to literally kill himself. He has to make so many decisions that are not Phil Connor's Pittsburgh weatherman who's an asshole. Prima donna, as Larry puts it. He has to make decisions outside of that person. And at a certain point in the loop, that becomes easier and easier because he gets farther and farther away from that person. However, the people who say like, oh, I heard that Harold Ramis said he was in there for like 10,000 years. I'm like, no, that would be a fucking tragedy. If someone's in a time loop for 10,000 years and then comes out, he is not a person anymore. He doesn't understand the passage of time or how regular society works or how a job happens if he's in there for that long. You don't want the time loop to last that long in a story. Unless you find some way to make that the story, is that someone has been essentially completely destroyed from who they once were. Preferably, in that case, for the story to work, by outside forces. You need that to be a science fiction story. Or a fantasy story where someone else has trapped someone. Like, this isn't a time loop, but like Morpheus trapping Nada in hell for 10,000 years in Sandman comic and the Netflix show. Never mind the problematic nature of the writer of that now. But inside the story, there is a legitimate thing there, is that she can't forgive him for that. And she can't just hang out in his domain. She has to separate from her because she is not really that person she once was. And she now sees that he wasn't the person she thought he was. So you don't want someone in a 10,000 year loop. You don't want someone in a 1,000-year loop. You don't even really want someone in a 100-year loop. You think if you live to be 100 years old, you're going to be even close to the person you are right now? Well, maybe right now, because a lot of my listeners might be my age, so you're already like halfway to 100. But like my students, a lot of my students, right this semester are mostly high school age. Because I'm teaching for Upward Bound. But even college freshmen that I teach a lot of the time are young enough that 100 years from now, they're not going to recognize who they were necessarily when they were younger. I mean, probably they will recognize them, but they won't feel like they are that person. Of course, I say this, and as I say it, I'm thinking, actually, I'm a lot like I was when I was a kid. I just have better knowledge about the way the world works. I think personality-wise, I'm still mostly the same. I'm not sure I've changed a lot. I've gotten better at being better, I think. Someone asked on Twitter today, like, it's a post about people with, like, autism and ADHD and stuff. Like, if you'd been diagnosed earlier, what would have changed? That was one question. And then they had a separate question. It was like, what does a diagnosis make easier in your life? And aside from an actual medical diagnosis might get you certain care or opportunity for care, certain resources or support that you need. It also, for me, it gives me the opportunity to sort of forgive some of my quirks, like the way I interact with people, the way I remain quiet until a certain point, and then I project my views onto them, the info dumping and stuff like that. When you're just a nerd and you think you're info dumping because you're a nerd, it feels like the other person's right when they tell you to shut up. If you're autistic and you're info dumping and they just tell you to shut up, it's like, no. I mean, if you'd like me to shut up, how about I just never interact with you ever again? Because you don't understand who I am. And I think Phil he can't be in there for that long. It could be years. I think in the blog I used to say, if I had to come up with a measurement, it would not be specific in terms of numbers, but it would be specific in terms of like a value. Is that he spends a lifetime.
You got what anybody gets, Bernie. No more, no less. You got a lifetime.
At this point in the time loop, I don't know how long it has been. A month in the movie. February in 91 is 28 days. So he's been there for a month that we have seen. Add 6 days for the deaths if we assume he's being honest, and I think we should assume he's being honest. And add a couple extras for other things. Learning stuff. In this minute, I think there is moves by Bill Murray that I don't know that this was a choice by him or a choice by Ramis. Certainly not a choice in the script. But I feel that we could take some cues from the way Murray acts in this minute, 72, to suggest that maybe Phil has even had this day before. He has gotten Rita to his room by proving that he's in a time loop, I think. And it's kind of a thing I'm deciding to think this time through, because I'm watching like the mannerisms, and that's why I don't think it's necessarily a conscious choice on the part of anyone involved in the film. But I think watching the movie, we can interpret it. We can take that. Watch the way that Bill Murray or Phil Connors responds to things Rita says in this minute, where his reaction is a bit, not blank, but like he's waiting. Like he knows these lines, he knows what he has to say, and he's curious to see how far it goes. Is she going to stay? Has she stayed before? I don't think so. I think structurally, again, the movie is suggesting a certain element where until she stays, he doesn't really see how good she is. He's seen parts of it. He's got a good picture. He likes what he sees. But until she actually stays the night and legitimately believes him about the time loop, even when it doesn't flip over at midnight in this minute, it gives him reason to actually start reinventing himself. But we start this minute at the point he needs to be for that to happen. Don't even exist anymore. And then Rita has, positive response to that. Well, sometimes I wish I had 1,000 lifetimes. I don't know, Phil. Maybe it's not a curse. It just depends on how you look at it. And there's a nice pause as he's like trying to like moving his head, like thinking about that. And then, gosh, you're an upbeat lady. And she is. Like she's looking at this as, anyone might. The fantasy of being able to repeat the same day seems fun. Being stuck in it could suck eventually. Like if I was repeating today, I don't know, I'd show my class a movie or something, or different movies, different days. I don't know what to do with them per se, because I'm not changing their understanding of the world in a day. I guess I could eventually keep doing them in my classes just like Phil keeps doing his reports until eventually he does, the checkoff thing at the end that we all take as deep and meaningful. Even though it's a very shallow representation of deep and meaningful. No offense, Danny. So maybe I'd eventually get to a lecture that really instills in them what I'm trying to teach them about communication, about speech, because it's a speech 101 class. For the rest of the day, what would I do? I'd probably the same stuff I'm doing already. I'd now take breaks and do other things, go to the park, go to an amusement park, go to restaurants I've never been to, even expensive ones, because money doesn't have value in a time loop. But I'd get through my watch list. I think I said this a few episodes ago. My watch list for slasher films has hundreds of films on it still. I have a watch list for the MCU. I'm watching through it. I could get through it in the time loop and move on to something else. I could catch up on the thousands of movies I've never seen. I think I've hit the 8,000 mark on the ones I've counted on Letterboxd, but there are so many more I haven't seen. But also, why am I watching all these movies if I'm in a time loop? What do I need from movies other than entertainment and a distraction? What else can I distract myself with? New hobbies. What are those hobbies? What's the point of a hobby if there's no results? That's why Phil sculpting in ice is more interesting as a metaphor than Phil sculpting in stone, which was how it was in the original script. Because ice melts. It is a medium that is not permanent. It's like a mandala, sand art. It is made to be detailed, and it's more about the process, because when it's done, you don't preserve it. It's like doing a puzzle. I'd probably take up puzzling as a hobby. I've tried that in real life, and I like puzzles, but if a puzzle is taking more than one sitting, I get kind of annoyed. So I haven't found that right balance of how many pieces, and they should rate them by difficulty and piece count. Maybe they do. Maybe there's a guide online for that kind of stuff. Or a certain manufacturer has easier puzzles or harder puzzles. Gosh, you're an upbeat lady. And she says, I want you to know it's been a really nice day for me. Phil says, me too. And it feels like he means it, but also that you could watch him, his affect is a little minimal. He's waiting. He knows these lines. I think he's been in this scene before. She says, and maybe, if it's not too boring, we could do it again sometime. He says, I hope so. And I think they did. I think they maybe will. Even though the edit of the film suggests the next morning he's waking up more optimistic and he's starting at something new, I think he may have done this day more than once. Not because he had to perfect it, but because it was so close to perfection already. But notice he's also not manipulating it. He's responding directly. Me too, I hope so. And then she leans in for like a hug. The clock changes to midnight, and she pulls back a little surprised. You're still here. I thought you were supposed to disappear, or I was, or something. He says, not until 6. And he just says it matter-of-factly. She says, oh, you rat. I never said midnight. And she understands what's happening in this moment, maybe more than we do. You knew I was waiting for midnight. Yeah, he knew she was waiting for midnight. The question now is, because she gets up, and where does she go? If you're paying attention, I described the geography of this room in detail when she was in his room the previous time. She backs away from the bed. That means she's backing toward the couch, toward the stairs that go down. She moves toward the exit. Not very far. She's not like across the room ready to go, but that is the direction she moves. And he says, does this mean you're going to leave? I think this is what matters for this day to work. Does she leave other nights? Does he even understand why she leaves or why she stays? Does it matter if he understands why she makes the decisions she makes? Or all that really matters is, having experienced this day, even once, does he understand why he used to make the decisions he used to make? Does he understand how to make new ones? If you're having problems in your life, do you understand how to make the decisions you need to make to change it? After class today, one of my students asked what my plans for the future was. And I'm like, dude, I'm old. It's a weird question. But we were talking about political stuff in class because people were figuring out topics for their final speech. And I was like, what do you do when the state of the world is messy and in flux? How do you plan for that? Do you move to a new place? Do you start a new life? Do you stay in a life where the local world could be collapsing around you? Do I have the privilege of making that kind of choice? Kind of. Is that good? I mean, for me, I guess. Also, I love LA. I've lived here my whole life other than, 3 months, where I lived in Tennessee and Arkansas. So, does it matter what the plans for the future is, or does it matter that the next decision you make is a good one? And the next decision after that is a good one.
One tiny step at a time.
And the next decision after that is a good one. And as I say often at the end of the show, that you are taking care of the people you care about. And if you need help, you are accepting care from other people. That's all that really matters, is this sort of short-term life, because long-term plans don't matter if you can't deal with the short-term stuff. That's the thing about a time loop, is it forces Phil to only think in the short term, where outside the time loop, he was trapped in this illusion that he was better than his position. And all he was doing, of course he's going to hate his job if he thinks he's too good for it, and all he's doing every time he's doing a weather report is wishing he was doing it somewhere else. Now he doesn't have that option. There's a privilege to being in a time loop because you know stuff, but he doesn't have the privilege of as many options as he would have had, as many opportunities as he would have had. So, for Phil, he's trapped. He is, what is that? Doughton, I think? It's an author, Suzanne Doughton. I forget the title of the piece, but I'm pretty sure it's her essay where she compares Phil to, the otherized, poor, because money doesn't matter anymore.
This is indeed from Suzanne M. Doughton's essay, The Spiritual Power of Repetitive Form, Steps Toward Transcendence in Groundhog Day, published in the June 1996 issue of Critical Studies in Mass Communication. Specifically, in context, she says the audience can see that Connor's arrogance is debilitating, for the time loop has shaken his confidence in his perceptions of reality, but not in his values. Rather than search his own soul for a solution, he seeks advice from two down-and-out men in a bowling alley bar. What would you do if you were stuck in one place and every day was exactly the same, and nothing that you did mattered? In answer, the first man, Gus, gulps down a shot of liquor. The other, Ralph, says gloomily, "That about sums it up for me." Phil's situation, trapped in the time loop, parallels that of the economically disenfranchised, the other. Neither Phil nor the blue-collar men in the bowling alley have any apparent control over the past or the future. If they are aware of their situation, they have limited options, and Connors tries all three in order. They can give in to futility and indulge in the sensual pleasures. They can give up, commit suicide literally or virtually, or they can concentrate on improving their small corner of the world.
His privilege is not about his position that he used to have. It's about the time loop, and the time loop has beaten him down at this point. So he can only lift himself back up by trying something new. And that's what I put on you, I guess, is try something new. And if the new thing doesn't go well, I don't know, if at first you don't succeed, try again. Or, as Homer Simpson might say, the lesson is never try. Figure out which one works and then try something else new. Try something, or do the things you enjoy. Maybe that's all you have right now, because the future is blurry.
Knew you were going to say that.
This has been a production of Lemming Drops Studio. You can find links to more at lemmingdrops.com or join the Facebook group Lemming Drops Studio Tour. Also, you can support all my shows at patreon.com/lemmingdrops.
What is wrong in the end which never comes? Or which comes again and again, lapping, like waves.
Since the Big Bang set everything in motion, everything that happens in this universe has to be the way it is. Particles unfolding the way they're destined to.
How do you sleep at night? You've never seen Groundhog Day?
Yeah, you know Groundhog Day is not a documentary.
Remember when Groundhog Day was just a movie?
Baby steps? It means setting small, reasonable goals for yourself, one day at a time. One tiny step at a time.
Baby steps.
For instance, when you leave this office, don't think about everything you have to do in order to get out of the building. Just think of what you must do to get out of this room. And when you get to the hall, deal with that hall, and so forth. You see?
Baby steps.
Baby steps. Oh, boy.
Baby steps. Baby steps. Baby steps through the office. Baby steps out the door. It works. It works. All I have to do is take one little step at a time, and I can do anything. Baby step around the office. Baby step around the office.
That should give you a lot to digest while I'm on vacation.
Vacation?